and welcome back to another episode of The Devil's in the Details, hosted by yours truly, Kat Donovan, author of The Devil's Odyssey, the book that this is a book club for. Anyways, we've got a good episode today. I think you're actually really going to love it. You know, I like to make things conversational and hear different people's takes. This is in fact supposed to be a cute little community. So, that being said, today I'm thrilled to introduce a very special guest. She's an enigma. You never really know what's going on with her, but she's the type where you just know she knows. She is one of the most thoughtful and caring people I know and has a level of patience like no other. What I admire most about her is her steadiness. She stays calm and puts one foot in front of the other. She's no stranger to flexibility, and she helps to ground people around her. I love her commitment to being of service to others and helping the world to become a lighter and brighter place for the next generations. It's an honor to welcome my dear friend, Ginger.
Hey guys, what's up?
All right, so what's funny about Ginger is whenever I first met her, I asked her and I was like, "Are you a spiritual person?" And she goes, "What gave it away?" So that being said, as you know, if you've read the book, of course, that there's a lot of spiritual things kind of interwoven in it, and you could say that it describes a couple of my own spiritual awakenings. So, that being said, I love when I meet spiritual people, just because I like hearing their take on it and how they got to become spiritual and what that's like for them. So, that's kind of what we're going to get into today. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it. So if you are curious about spirituality and like awakenings and stuff like that, this might be just the episode for you.
Totally.
So, Ginger.
Yes.
I'm kind of curious about how you grew up. Like, were your parents very spiritual people, or did you just find it later on in your own? By the way, she has a bird. This is so exciting, but she has a bird named No-No.
His name is No, and he is my parakeet, and that's probably who you'll hear the most amongst when we talk, because he likes to talk when other people talk. No, and let us know when people are outside. So don't be rude, No, okay? All right.
But yeah, so like, how did you grow up? Like, were your parents spiritual?
I think I describe it as this. It was not talked about, obviously, when you were, and it was in their time era, so whatever they were experiencing was, I feel, almost looked down upon. I feel like all I can say is I knew at 7 years old, I was just made for something so much bigger, and talking about it with my parents was difficult because they didn't understand, like, how I was describing it, because it's a completely different feeling, you're relating to movies at such a young age, or scenes, that you see on TV or music, and as a child you're so emotionally moved, you just can feel that, oh my gosh, that's so different. Like, so they were, did we talk about God? Sure, but we never really, made it a thing where, yeah.
Well, so do you feel like, I guess, were you always visually as spiritual? Like, did you kind of just take on the persona of, I beat to my own drum? I beat to the, what is it?
Yeah, you beat to, I beat to my own drum type thing.
Or did you kind of, do the whole masking and people-pleasing thing, and then it was, whenever you were, 18, 19, and finally moved out, that you were like, all right, back to who I used to be. Let's do this.
Yeah, actually, that's a pretty good way to look at it, because, I look at spirituality in a completely different sense. I don't look at it as church and God, but that's what we went to. Mm-hmm. We did church, we did CCD, but I did come to a point, in my life where it was I didn't know if I truly believed in God. I just knew that higher people existed. So when I started on my journey, I didn't really know who I was looking up to, and I kind of beat to my own drum on that. And I say just my life experiences have kind of led me to put that one foot in front of the other to discover more and more. I was always drawn to different things. And then in one point in my life, it all became God. I was like, oh my God, I need to get a relationship better with God. And, I look at it as two ways. It's either something that you do or something that you don't. And, you know, you can't fake your relationship. You know, they say fake it till you make it, but you can't really fake your relationship with God, I think, at this point, from what I've really learned.
Yeah.
You know, people pleasing my parents, doing all the things that you're supposed to do at a young age, and then moving on and journeying out and going, well, wait a minute, you know, you're almost undoing everything that you were taught to be your own belief. You know, so it's a roller coaster, and I feel like a lot of people struggle with that too.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I guess kind of what did it like? Would you consider yourself having to have gone through awakenings, or like how do you refer to whenever you kind of started coming back to spirituality from your own point of view more so? And like what was that like? And do you feel like they were mini events that kind of just like stacked up on top of each other, or do you think that there was like one major event where you were like, oh, I get it, start connecting?
No, I feel like, well, alright, what I'm hearing, you're gonna put, I hope this works for you, I hope this works. I can't really say that it was one experience, and yeah, it is it's constantly putting one foot in front of the other. You know, just before we recorded, I feel like I just went through another spiritual experience to really overcome sitting here with you today. You know, I feel like my rock bottom is when I started to really take seriously, you know, spirituality and just my own. Right, Nono? And
You consider your rock bottom whenever you started to do
yes.
spirituality, like when you hit that feeling of like, I don't know where else to go, and then you kind of like turn to source, spirit, God, whatever you consider it.
I just like, one day it was just kind of like, I woke up and it was like, this is this is what you're going to do today. And I was like, oh really, that's what I'm going to do today? And it just felt right. And I didn't question it. Like, you know, reflecting back on, like, as we talk, like, there was a point my mom was always talking about horoscopes, but I didn't really quite understand it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe, like, you push that out of your head when you go through all these experiences, but, you know, it didn't matter. It didn't faze me then. It fazed me more that each time I went through something so difficult in my life, the experience I was getting out of that was just... and that was just like the awakening, so it's like, or like the spiritual experience that I needed, or you know, yeah, it's so crazy. Young, and I think people experience them differently. You know, some people get body aches and pains.
I feel like half the time a lot of people don't even know that they're like going through it, especially the first few that they have, and it's not until they have a little bit more of an understanding of like what's happening to them, or they start to educate themselves more with spiritual information. Because I think that there's a difference between being spiritual and having the knowing inside of you, but then also externally searching for other information that other people, like from literally thousands of years ago, have experienced and like have walked us through or had information about. I think it's different to be spiritual and spiritually educated, and I think everybody has spiritual awakenings, but they don't fully understand the point or what they are, especially in that moment. And then the more you educate yourself on them, you're like, oh, I get it now. And so it's like one of those things where when you're in rock bottom and you hear, oh, this is what we're doing today, you're not thinking, I'm going through a spiritual awakening today.
Yeah.
You're not thinking that. And then you look back whenever someone asks you like a question like this, and you're like, oh, that would actually be the moment.
Yeah. It, like, as you're saying that, I hear like dark, depressed, like, you know, you're like, it's like you're falling down that hole of like, WTF is going on, you know. But yeah, I think once you gotta, what I think people don't do enough of is when you're experiencing that, allow yourself to experience that, but like, make sure you're safe, you know, first and foremost, obviously. But I think that I've come to realize that if we could be more gentle with ourselves during that time, that it would really be about like you're holding a place for yourself to feel that. Like the only good can come from that, right? You're nurturing yourself, so like allow yourself to feel that, and then like sit with it. And then if you get pulled towards, let's research it. Why am I going this way? Or I all of a sudden feel free or feel the feeling to go to hot yoga today. Like what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
It's I think people don't follow enough of their true intuition.
Yeah.
With that, like if people were more aware of like certain things that you're told to or attracted to doing, is your Jiminy Cricket kind of like, trying to get you to see the bigger picture, I think. If that makes sense. And I think that not enough of us actually allow ourselves to be in that space. Or we talk enough about it, hopefully.
Yeah. No. I think it's interesting because I feel like there's a lot of terms that people throw around. Like one is sit with it, and another one is hold space. And I think it's interesting because another one is set your intention. So this is kind of a funny story, but I've been going to yoga now for like 5-6 years.
Okay.
Maybe 7. Like it's been a minute.
Part of your life.
Yeah. And I specifically remember this moment back in March where I went to a yoga class and they said, like, set your intention or something like that. And normally, whenever I would go to a class and they would say, set your intention, if you don't have one, you can borrow mine. And they would tell me whatever their intention was. And I just didn't get it. Like, in theory, I should know what it means to set an intention. Like, what's the intent of this practice?
Yeah.
And I always would be like, well, isn't everyone's intent the same? Isn't it just like relax or like work out or something like that? And I didn't get it.
Yep. Makes sense.
I didn't get it. And then it clicked for me in March. I was like, I can ask whatever question I want, and that's the clarity that I'm gonna get while I'm on the mat.
Yep.
And no one explains that to you, but it feels like something that's self-explanatory. But in the same way, hold space for someone. I was like, okay, we say this, but what does that mean? What does that mean? And it kind of hit me whenever I was in a conversation with someone over the summer, and it was like, we both kind of messed up. It was one of those things where you're able to say, I know I didn't say that quite right. I don't know that came out the way that it should have, but I didn't really have the tools to say it any differently. But in the same way, their response to me could have also been way different.
Very different.
So it was like a moment of being like, hey, let's take a step back here.
Right.
Because I don't know that I said that the way that I wanted to, and I don't like the way that this conversation is going in general.
Okay.
So can we just acknowledge, like, what I'm trying to do with you right now is I'm trying to connect you.
Right.
I'm not trying to be rude, and I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to actually understand the way that you think, and I'm trying to tell you why I may or may not act in a certain way. And I realized in that moment, like, oh, this is what actual holding space is when you have two people that you're giving room for someone to have not done something correctly. So when you're a parent, you're supposed to be holding space for your child at all times, essentially.
Yeah.
Because your child is quite literally, that they are not of your age or of your maturity, theoretically.
They don't have logic, so that's like one thing you gotta remember as a parent. They don't have logic.
So it's just one of those things where you're like, oh, that's what it means to hold space. And like when you're holding space for others, it means that you're giving them the room and the capacity to kind of correct their mistakes. It's not necessarily being abused.
Being themselves. You're holding a space for them being who they are, and you're giving them like that side input of, hey, get it. I'm holding the space for you to feel how you feel. Take X, Y, and Z and see if it becomes a benefit for you. And they're either going to do it or they're not. I think there's people that truly, truly want it, and I think people that talk about it, and that's just a really important thing. Intention. You really are, like before when we were talking, you're either going to be in or you're out, right? And I learned that the hard way too. What did that mean? Like, but it was also had a lot to do with setting your intention differently. Like, just said differently, and you're, holding that space, and you're, so it's an incredible thing how it really works, I think, essentially.
Yeah.
So
100%. And I'm curious, like, whenever, I don't know if it makes sense to look at it from the lens of, like, looking back, or more so now where you're at today, but it's kind of like, how did your thoughts, feelings, and perceptions of yourself change whenever you recognized, like, these awakenings? So whenever you had, like, spirit be like, hey, that's what you're doing today, did your perception or the way that you started talking to yourself, like, your thoughts, your feelings, start to change, like, right then in that day? Or do you think that it was, like, more of a slow, gradual change? Or do you even think that they changed? Because I basically just made it
awareness was really big. Like, in order to make any type of change, it's so much awareness, and it's around the clock thing. So it's acknowledging, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, it's doing it and following through with it. Like, don't get me wrong, like, sometimes I'm like, I'm tired. No, I'm gonna order myself a pizza. Like, I'm going to, but that's also the part of me that's saying, hey, nurture yourself. So as much as I can be on track and like hear, like, hey, today this is what you're gonna do to follow your path to get to this, being aware of when you're doing it, why you're doing it, like the who, what, where, whens. What's your, do you, like,
does it go back to intention?
It goes back to intention. Like, that's why I was like, wait a minute. And then I'm hearing, like, it's like purpose. It goes back to intention. Intention is purpose. Like, which it's so, like, yes. And I think that for someone like even yourself, I can see, like, intention, like, you already know right off the bat that you're here for a bigger purpose. Like, to question that so much, and want to peel that layer, you already know that you want more. My biggest thing right now is it was a quote I heard, can't remember from who, like, but don't take the credit, but you come into this world not knowing who you are, and so many people die not knowing who they are, and I'm like on that journey and want other people to be part of that journey of, let's figure out who you are, set the intention, make you aware, bring you up to where you're supposed to be, so you're not just living this life of, I'll just say, me. Like the emoji with you, me. Which, I think it's just being aware when you're doing it, how you're doing it, what you're doing. Yeah.
100%. And I think that's kind of what you see in the book too, is like, it's me slowly becoming more aware of what I'm doing and how I'm treating myself, because that's kind of like the whole point of one spiritual awakenings, is like, you're supposed to understand yourself more. Not necessarily to fix yourself, but to understand yourself, so you can actually provide the things that you need, that you've been ignoring,
and operate at the level that you're meant to operate at. You'll naturally get better at something as time goes on, because that's when you're supposed to get it. Like, okay, great. Like, people beat themselves up all the time about them not being where they're supposed to be, but
that's part of holding space, is like, if you're willing to give space to other people to mess up, you have to be able to be willing to give yourself that same space of like, oh, what felt like it should have been obvious wasn't obvious to me, and that's okay. That was my lesson to learn. Glad I learned it. But I can't be mad at myself for not having that information sooner.
No, you can't be gentle, be kind. That's the most with yourself. Because if you're not, then you're not going to be gentle, you're not going to be kind with other people, and then you're just going to be walking around like a freaking asshole. So I'm just saying. Like, and then you like bleed onto those people, and it's like, here, be an asshole, because I'm an asshole. Like,
so that way I feel better about the fact that I'm an asshole.
Yeah, right? So it's just like, at this time, it's more like, hey, spread the light so that you can, be more light, and, it goes back to, that will go back to the spirituality, like, going to a higher source of that, where do you believe? It's just all connected. All connected. It's crazy. But
What would you say is the first habit that changed after your spiritual awakenings? Like, what's one habit where you were like, I do this consistently and I know that I shouldn't, and this is what I want to take away from my life, so that way I can do addition through subtraction?
Your questions are so mathy. And math is not my strong point, as you know.
So sorry.
No. Okay, say the question again, because I want to
Let me put it in a different way.
Okay, let's put it in ginger spiritual terms of things.
What was like the first thing where you were like, I need to stop doing this, and you actually stopped doing it?
I feel like I literally ran into a wall. Like,
I'm sorry, what?
like when you're like, look, we all make mistakes. We all sin. We all, we're all not honest at one point in our life. But then there just comes a point when you realize, what game am I playing? Or what game is it going on? Not even a game with yourself.
Yeah.
It's not like you're intentionally waking up and going, I'm going to play with that person today, and I'm going to play with that person today. I mean, right? Not unless you're like a leading narcissist in today's time, but I know that,
No, this is so trippy, because I actually used to do a series like this on TikTok where it was like, how am I manipulating myself? Mm-hmm. And it's like taking, it goes so far deep, because what I realized is, so I think I actually tell this story in the book, but it's basically like, I was at a work happy hour back at the end of 2023.
Right.
That happy hour is only 2-3 hours long, maybe. Mm-hmm. Within the course of, it felt like an hour, it could have been an hour and a half. I had one coworker come up to me and be like, this is when I had just, so for background, I've been many different hair colors.
Oh, okay.
So.
Thanks, girl. New look, new this. You know you gotta be that.
So, I was brunette, then I went blonde, and then I went redhead.
Right.
So I had recently just gone redhead, and they came up to me and they said something along the lines of, when I first saw you, it just, something didn't add up. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, well, you see, you said, pretty smart stuff. You had, pretty good questions. Yeah. But you were blonde. And it just didn't make sense.
Okay, thanks for nothing.
And so I was, keep in mind, we're at a happy hour, so I'm like, is he drunk?
Yeah, are you complimenting me? Are you not complimenting me? What's...
I was very confused.
Yeah.
And he goes on to say something along the lines of, because he had seen me as a blonde, and he had seen me as a redhead, and I basically was just trying to, joke it off almost, and be like, yeah, well, I also used to be a brunette. And he goes, well, here's the thing. If you want my advice...
Which we didn't ask, but okay, we're all ears for this one.
If you want to hook up with a bunch of guys, go back blonde. If you want to hook up with 10 guys, you should stay redhead. And if you want to meet your husband tomorrow, go back brunette. And I was so thankful that a coworker walked up at that point, because what? Did I just have my intelligence level and my self-worth and everything just be tied to the hair color that, mind you, is not natural?
Which is
my personality, my whole essence of myself. I get changing your hair for a different vibe, because that's definitely the point.
Well, yeah.
But that doesn't take away just all of these personality traits that you have.
But you know what gets me on that part? It's perception. How that says more about him than it does you. And
100%, but he topped it off with, just ask any of my friends, they'd say the same thing. I was like, what?
Well, I would not want to know who your friends are. Sorry.
What? But then we go, so that whole scenario happens, and I'm like, that felt like I was on an episode of Punk'd. I was like, where are the fucking cameras? Because,
yeah, really?
what was that?
Just kidding.
So then, the next thing, I'm talking to one of the VPs that I've talked to before, and we were talking about social media, and, I don't remember exactly how it came up, but I was basically saying how I'd been trying to work on my social media for a while, and she was like, oh, just do beauty things. You're pretty. The people like beauty. And I was like, you know nothing of my interests. You just, again, minimize me to
Yeah.
what I look like. What?
Yeah, because everyone's so worried about, like, the outside part of you, you know, and I think that's what gets so many people, not to, you know, but that's what gets so many people in trouble, too. It's just like this, okay, but what about beyond that? And, like, that's just, like, bothers me because it goes with the spiritual awakening. You can't, there's parts you can see in a person when you go through that spiritual awakening, and then there's, like, parts that you can't see about that person when they go through that spiritual awakening. And it's frustrating because the people that have that perception of, I don't want to say frustrating, it's just the thought of, you know, a person having that perception, not being able to, I'll just say, emotionally intelligently dig deeper, you know, that bothers me.
Yeah.
That really, like, bothers me in the sense of just, like, WTF, man.
Yeah, and so, but then, the third person he was a little bit different because he sat behind me, so, normally at work. And we were having a conversation about work stuff, and in the middle of the conversation he goes, hold on, don't take this the wrong way, but I thought you were dumb until we started having this conversation. And now I think you're actually very intelligent, but I'm just very shocked. And I was like, okay, no, that's cool. And it was then that I realized, like, stuff like that, like very potent events like that where you have three people basically just
judge you
based on what you look like.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, what am I supposed to be getting out of this? Because that doesn't happen for no reason. And
so, like, what message were you receiving in that, like, or what? So I get it, yeah. And what do you feel like you learned in that whole?
Well, so as I started, like, digging deeper into it, I was kind of like, the last guy makes a little bit of sense, because the thing is what I would do is to kind of break the ice a lot of the time, because I didn't actually work with him. He just sat there. And I would say stupid stuff, like, that's a nice mauve sweater you got on there. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like things like...
That's funny, like...
like, it's supposed to be a joke, but, like, also if you don't have the same sense of humor as me, you could be like, yeah, she sounds fucking dumb.
Yeah.
But, like, 100%. And I was like, he has the most reason to believe or, like, say that.
Because he's, like, around you, knows that.
But then I also started realizing, oh my god, this is such inner manipulation. And what's happening is I will easily, especially when it pertains to men, is I know the way to get their attention is to say something that is either out of the box that could be taken as dumb, or give them some feeling of superiority so that way they feel calm talking to me. So that way I create this rapport with them where they're calm. And the thing is that it was always related to my intelligence. If I didn't come across as that smart, then they would easily feel like, okay, she's someone safe to talk to. Or at least that was the perception that I had.
Right.
And even though I didn't go into conversations thinking that was definitely the thing. Because growing up, I don't think that I was really told, oh, like, you're smart. Like, I think it was always something where I was considered, like, I was the youngest in my family.
Yeah.
It was like, I just wasn't as smart as them. And it's like, well, I'm also not as old as you, so, like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But you just get into these habits, or, like, you have these very small things from childhood that whether anyone intentionally meant for you to feel that way or not, you still felt that way. And because...
Kind of like when we were in the kitchen and I was like, way to cut me off. And I was like, but I didn't mean it like that. But, like, luckily you're learning, like, as we become friends, like, you get that humor.
Yes.
Like, and that's funny, like, I tell everyone, you don't get my humor. Like, people do not get my humor. Like, a dog could, like, I don't know. I tell Mandy all the time, I'm like, it sounds like my humor is so rude. But keep going. It's like, I totally level with this. So.
But it's like these little small things from childhood, they, like, latch onto you almost. And, like, I borderline think that's what your childhood trauma is. But Trigger warning. But that's what it is. And I realized, like, oh, I'm doing this to myself so that way I feel safe, because if I don't give someone actual access to my level of intelligence, then, well, it goes two ways. It's because if they don't have any level of access to my intelligence, then anything that they think is no longer valid internally. But at the same time, I'm also proving the internal thought that I already have, that I'm dumb, because I'm having people reflect back to me that they don't think I'm intelligent. So it's like it's a double whammy.
Wait, let me get the mirror. Like, that's kind of like, I get what you're saying, but when you come out with this, I'm gonna just say, like, when you come out the way that you do, they're like, oh damn, like, shit, you're so smart. Like, but if I talk like that all the time, you would be like, oh my god, like, what, like, I feel like guys or, people that judge that, it's like a double-edged sword. If I made myself the smartest person in the room, well, then I would have got looked at like I was a show-off. But if I made myself the dumbest person in the room, then, I'm giving all you guys the upper, hand that you're smarter than me. And, I think that there is a really good way to just be neutral about it. And, like, I mean, I know me, I can be very quiet, for example, like, but then, like, when I know I need to say something or I want to say something, I sound like I'm an open encyclopedia. Like, it happens, but then other than that, sometimes you just kind of see me and I'm just like, yo, what's up? Like, and if you were that one way all the time,
You're
just be
one-dimensional.
you. Yeah,
so like
just flow with it, like, and again, just going back to those, like, exterior things of, like, the hair color, and I think it messes with, especially women, I think it messes with their confidence within themselves. Like, oh, there's this stigma that is gotta, like, be like this, like, and I don't think it really should be, like,
yeah, it shouldn't have as many boxes.
No, that's why I said the word, like, perception before. Each person's perception is different. You could be saying the same thing, though, that I'm saying, but you could just be saying it differently. But then, like, that is what makes your perception in my mind. But then we could also be having a difference in perception. And again, it's a perception. And going back to that person being right or wrong, who's right, who's wrong, and that's how I've also looked at, my spiritual awakening. Like you said, what's one thing that, like, I noticed the most as when you see through the fucking fog of things, you're like, oh my god. Now, I'm still working, like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, like, a lifetime worth of work.
Yeah, like I said, like, one foot in front of the other, and, like, that's funny, because that's what I even, like, tell, like, the kids when we're working a lot of the time is, put one foot in front of the other, because, if you put both of them together, what are you doing? You're going to fall off the beam. If you put both of them together, it just doesn't, and I tie a lot of things together, metaphorically, and I don't know. Yeah, I think that it's perception and being, like, not so one way, and being who you want to be and how you want to be it, is just like the song we listened to this morning. Like, it's a thing. It's a thing. I don't know. No, like,
he's got a lot to say.
You really do, homeboy, and he's like side-eyeing it and everything.
I love nature.
Me too, right? Yeah.
Speaking of that, how do you communicate with Source? Like,
it's so fucked up. It's so fucked up.
Well, I just feel like you, at least from what I've gathered, are very into sensations in the body. But I'm curious, like, how do you actually explain the way that you communicate with spirit?
It's an inner knowing. I can't, like, it's just a knowing. Sometimes,
like, do you get thoughts in your head? Do you see visuals in your head? Like, do you hear things outside? Is it, like, through animals?
Symbols a lot.
Goosebumps, obviously.
Yeah, goosebumps, as you saw before. But the goosebumps are more of, like, an energy shift from, like a shift in energy, and there's things like, music is very big for me, there's something that's in that music I need to know, like, I know that that's just Source going, hey, this is where you're going, responding to that, like, oh, you want me to do this? Okay. You know, like, it's my Jiminy Cricket, you know, but, you know, and it's a good one because it's setting such an amazing pace.
I gotta ask you about the Jiminy Cricket because
Okay.
it's just, like, you've said it now twice, and I just think it's funny because it's come up for me a couple of times, and so I just don't, I don't think I know who Jiminy Cricket is, and
Pinocchio?
like,
Disney movie?
I knew it was in Pinocchio, but I don't know that I've ever seen Pinocchio.
Okay, so totally gonna be the movie that you, like, digest with tonight after this whole,
Okay.
you know, thing. Again, like, how do you communicate with source? I'm watching a movie and I'm like, oh, I see! Like, shit!
That's what happened when I watched Alice in Wonderland.
Okay, so now, Lewis Carroll, by the way, shout out. Amazing author. You know, yeah, you just start to, like, get those, oh, I see, like, and that's my impression because from the movie Tarzan, me and my daughter, we do this back and forth all the time, but it's just like when shit clicks, you know, that's that message, and then you take and go, okay, and then, like, a couple of days pass, and you're like, oh, so going to Jimmy Cricket is, like, my perception of, you know, what Pinocchio was truly about, you know, and what each character, especially Jiminy Cricket, what his character mainly played, and what was it for, you know, music communicates, you know, song artists communicate with us through their words, right? Movie writers, you know, communicate with us through their movies, but essentially they want us to know something much bigger than ourselves in their message. Mm-hmm. So, you know, let your conscience be your guide is something that is so like repeated in Pinocchio, and
which is interesting because the conscious is all about logic, when in reality, like, you kind of should be led more by your subconscious.
But your intuition, your intention. When you wake up in the morning, like, it's like, oh man, I gotta go to work. Like, no, today I'm gonna set the intention of, I'm gonna spread happiness around the world, like, you know, and this is how I'm gonna do it, you know. But no, you're 100% right on that. As you were saying about.
Yep.
Are we getting hot again? Because I can feel like my whole arm is on fire, just so you know. Just wanted to let you know that. See, okay. And that's how else I feel like.
Your left arm?
Yeah.
This is, the only reason I ask is because I got super into this, where, I think I said this in the last episode too, but basically, like, from April to June, I got really into understanding what, I think it's Chinese background, or like ancient Chinese ideology, but it's basically, so the left half of you, feminine, right half, masculine, and then anything that you feel pertains, like, different parts of your body mean different things, different wounds, if you will, mean different things about, like, what source is trying to communicate to you on what you need to, like, I don't know if fix is the right word, but, like, hey,
pay attention to, kind of lean to.
Yeah. So it's just interesting where, like, that's your feminine side, that's your receiving side, that's, like, it, and then heat is usually, like, a masculine thing, though. That's what's interesting. I don't actually know how to fully break it down. Like, that's where I feel I am at with so many different things, like when it comes to astrology and a lot of other things.
Yeah.
I know the basic understanding, but the application or the time together of different things is what I'm still in the progress of, like,
and it's a lot, so don't beat yourself up. Like, I mean, you know, it's so much compacted in one year, and that's why I said, like, there's never just one experience. So, like, now it's getting cooler. That's nice.
But that's another way that you communicate, is, like, I'm telling you, you're someone that very physically communicates with source.
Yeah, okay, and you know
Instead
what?
of, like,
it's something
tarot
that I
cards
haven't
or
really
oracle
noticed.
Cards.
Right, okay.
Whereas I think there's a lot of people, like, I know for me, tarot cards is what I, not always use, but at least especially, like, trying to get into communicating, I use those a lot. Like, probably more than I should have.
You gotta trust yourself a little bit more.
I definitely do.
It's so hard.
I don't know if I told you this. I told someone this recently, but it was, so Pinterest is, like, a huge platform for me where I kind of talk to source, because
Okay.
I think Pinterest is great for manifesting. Highly recommend.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it just fills your page with things that you are aiming to achieve. It can be words that you're trying to achieve. It can be actual visuals. And when you're scrolling through it, one of the things that I kept getting was Chinese fortunes.
Okay.
And
I keep a lot of the fortune cookie stuff, like when I go to Chinese places. This whole bowl, just so you know.
well, I kind of want to like just. Take
I
and
was
see
just
what
gonna say
happens.
before you leave, please pick.
But with that, one of the messages that kept coming up for me on Pinterest was, and they were all different. They were different ones, but they said the exact same thing, and it was, "You're not illiterate." And I was like, "The fuck does this mean?" Like, I can read, thank you.
Yeah.
But I know this isn't. You're not telling me that. Like, I know you're not literally meaning that. So what are you trying to tell me with this? And so, of course, I pulled cards because I was like, I'm just not getting this. And it was basically saying, like, you know more than you think that you do.
Mm-hmm.
You keep acting like you can't read things
You know.
without the cards.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you keep acting like you need so much help to speak to us, and you don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like, it's your safety net of like
confirming your inner knowing.
But it goes back to an intelligence thing, because it's always like that's kind of what I notice as, I mean, the book's titled The Devil's Odyssey.
Of course.
One of the biggest devils, the attachments that I have, is to my intelligence level. And I think part of that is being sure and being confident and knowing what you know. And that doesn't just apply to logical research type things that you're taking in from other places, but also, like, if you know something, you fucking know it.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel it, you fucking felt it.
If
so
you can't, and
you're not illiterate.
Yeah.
So stop acting like you can't read your own signs for yourself.
Yeah, it's kind of just because, like, tangibility is so big for us, but, like, it just strikes you different when there's a knowing. Like, there's times when me and my mom will be talking, and I'll say something, and I'll be like, "Mom, sounded really good, right?" She's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I don't know where that came from, but that was good enough for me." She's like, "Oh, it was great." You know, like, I don't feel like I bullshitted anybody in that moment, because there was this knowing. And then I'll go and I'm like, everything is Googleable today, right?
Yeah.
So
And you
then,
check it out, and you're like, holy fuck,
fuck,
I was right.
How did I know that? Yeah, like, and and then it makes you look, and if at that point you're not going, like, what's special about me? Like, then you really don't care why, like, what purpose you're here for.
Yeah.
Like, I at least I think, again, my perception. And
perception is reality.
But perception is reality. That's your reality. That's my reality. And I have such a big take on that. I'm like, so if I was to explain that perception is reality, I'm really sorry that keeps making noise. Don't worry, you're not going to break it. She's like, I don't like to break things in houses. But it's okay. But that's where I would say that's very big for me in the separation of what really is reality, what really is perception. I hear reality, I'm like, ew, take that word away. Because, like, reality is what everybody outside this door, that we're conforming to, that's their reality. But we know we know our reality as our own way. We're happier this way.
Yep.
Like, it's not like we're in this place of, like, non-existent, but look at this world that you even created with your book. This is your reality, and that's why it's like reality just hits different with me.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because one of the points in the book is, so I do a lot of interesting things in my life.
I know you, like, traveled everywhere, which is insane.
Not even in that realm of things, but more so, like, when I used to black out and, like, do things that, like,
you shouldn't have been doing, really, but you didn't.
Yeah.
Because there was a sole purpose behind it, but you just had to be bad in that moment because, hey, we all experienced it.
We had to learn some things. So I kind of, like, talk about the fact that, like, there are definitely events where this is my perception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How valid is this perception? Because if you think about browning out, like, if you don't fully black out and you brown out, the amount of things that you think that you know happen, you can't really like you have no idea how much you miss because you remember enough of it where you just think that if you string those events together, you remember everything.
Yeah,
but you don't
No,
in reality.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's not my reality. That's not my reality, that I missed these different parts.
Yeah.
And so my whole thing is like, because the thing about it too is I talk about a lot of different relationships in the book, and again, it's all about perception. So this is how I'm perceiving it, and you can see that there's probably there's a lens of trauma probably for each thing, where if you don't have the same trauma as me, you're probably reading it and being like, well, why the fuck would you think that?
Yeah.
Why would you take that the way that you took it? Like, that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
But if you have the same type of trauma as me, you're going to be like, oh my god, I see myself in her.
I feel that, yeah.
And so it's just interesting because at the end of the book, I'm kind of like, I probably don't seem like necessarily the most reliable narrator. And that's of my own life. So you might be thinking to yourself, like, you are a better narrator than me. But in all reality, how good of a narrator are you for your own life? Because at the end of the day, the narration is your perception. So if you're constantly thinking that if you were to write a book, like I wrote a book, and most of it would be from like this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. What does that tell you about how you're narrating and how you view life? Like, or is your book like, I'm always right, I'm always right, I'm always right? What is the tone? What is the lens? How would you actually narrate your book? And it's kind of being like, okay, understanding that if you were to write this as a book, would you actually be as good of a narrator as you think you are? Or are you realizing that it's a lot harder to narrate your life, and that your thoughts and your perceptions are going to completely change the book that is you? Because if you were to change my narration from a third-party perspective, if I were to write my life as if it weren't me, would that book come out the same? So we actually ended up filming way longer than we thought we were going to. So if you want to see part 2, go ahead and head over to As Told by Ginger Rose. And of course, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you had anything to add, comment it down below. And obviously, subscribe. I love having you here. I love talking to you guys. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. See you in the next video. Love you. Bye. Mwah.